Welcome to The Greek Current, a podcast by Halk and Kathimerini. I'm your host, Thanos Davelis. On Monday, the Biden administration notified Congress of the planned sale to Turkey of avionics software upgrades for its current fleet of F-16 fighter aircraft, a deal valued at up to $259 million. The deal, which would mark the first military equipment sale to Turkey in years, moved ahead after leaders of U.S. congressional committees gave informal approval. Petros Kasfikis, the Washington, D.C. correspondent for the Athens News Agency and Mega TV, joins me to break down the details of this deal, what it means for the potential sale of F-16s to Turkey, and explore whether this signals a shift in Washington when it comes to Ankara. Petro, great to have you back on The Greek Current.
Hi, Thanos. Always a pleasure to be here with you.
Petro, the Biden administration just notified Congress this week about a $259 million F-16 equipment sale to Turkey. What does this deal entail?
Yes, so the administration decided to move forward and notify officially Congress about the plan to sell to Turkey a number of avionics software upgrades for the current F-16 fleet. On the one hand, it is a significant development because if this deal moves forward, Turkey will manage to secure the first major military sale that Congress has approved for years. And we should have no doubt that President Erdogan will try to score some political points back at home and claim a very much needed victory, given that he's facing a very challenging election battle. On the other side, I believe there's not much to celebrate in this deal because Turkey gets pretty much the bare minimum. If you give a close look to the packets, you will see that there are not missiles included. And even with this update, Turkey's F-16s will not manage to get the Viper status, so they will still be lagging behind the Greek aircrafts. Now, if you consider that Greece has acquired French Rafale, it has managed to get a Viper status update for its fleet, and it has also moved ahead in the negotiations to get F-35, you can understand that Erdogan's belligerent foreign policy has hit a wall, and that simply there's not much to celebrate in this proposed sale.
So then you wouldn't say that the fact that the leaders of the relevant congressional committees giving their informal approval was a signal of a shift in Washington when it comes to Ankara?
By every means, I will say no. There's not a major shift in Congress because no one is willing to turn a blind eye to Turkey's erratic behavior, and even more significantly, no one is anymore afraid of Turkey's threats. For example, consider the Armenian genocide. Congress recognized genocide, but there was an irreparable damage in the relationship with Turkey. So this paradigm shift in Congress took place because lawmakers finally realized that it is Turkey that needs more the United States and not the other way around. So Congress is redefining this relationship, and it is finally putting the United States back on the driver's seat. Now, when it comes to the Biden administration, it is important to take note that it is an administration that has a record of respect towards Congress and the institutional role that the American lawmakers have to play in the process of arms sales. So, as you mentioned, this deal moved ahead only after U.S. congressional committees gave an informal approval. And this makes me believe that this small deal will ultimately be approved by Congress, because if the lawmakers intended to block it, they would not have provided an informal approval in the first place. And I believe that Congress is making here a gesture of goodwill without actually making any serious concession or offering too much to Turkey. And as they say, it takes two to tango, and the lawmakers will wait to see whether Turkey will reciprocate and change its policies and actions. But without any fundamental change in Turkey's behavior, we will not see any shift in Washington when it comes to Ankara.
A leading Turkey expert and frequent guest on our podcast, Sinan Chidi, described this on Twitter as one of the worst moves by the Biden administration. What message does this send to Ankara, especially in the lead up to crucial elections next month? I know you mentioned Erdogan could potentially use this to score political points.
Yes, as one of the most respected Turkish analysts that we have in Washington, D.C., Sinan is fully aware how Erdogan can manipulate any piece of news to his advantage. And at the time where pretty much there is no free press to Turkey. Sinan sees this development as something that Erdogan can turn it into a propaganda tool. I think he comes from a school of thought that believes that the opposition represents the best chance for Turkey to turn away from autocracy. Of course, they are not blind, like Stephen Cook, for example. They are all very aware of the situation, and they are not arguing that the defeat of Erdogan will solve immediately all the problems. But they are convinced that Erdogan, if he continues to rule, he will cement autocracy in Turkey, and Turkey will shift away even further from the West. So this is their perspective, I believe, and that's why they describe this deal, this development in Congress in such terms. The administration, of course, has a different perspective. Some claim that this small upgrade package is a reward to Ankara for Finland's accession to NATO. We do not know if this is the case, but we know that the administration wants to maintain a factional relationship with Turkey, no matter who will be in power in the next day of the elections. Of course, I'm convinced they have a preference, but no matter who is in power, they will need to have a working relationship the next day after the elections.
This deal, Petro, is separate from the proposed $20 billion sale of new F-16 fighters and nearly 80 modernization kits that Turkey has requested. Does this week's approval mean this larger and more significant sale could receive a green light potentially from Congress in the near future?
You know, for a long time, Turkish diplomats and politicians have been accusing Congress, and particularly Senator Menendez, for anti-Turkish bias. So, with this move, Congress will demonstrate its commitment to NATO interoperability and its willingness to provide greater benefits as Turkey changes its behavior. So Congress has the opportunity to make a gesture of goodwill, if you want to say, but without actually making any serious concessions or offering too much to Turkey. Congress takes an issue with the Turkish policies which goes against the Western values and threaten the American strategic interest in the region. It does not have an anti-Turkish bias, so they clearly hold both the carrot and the stick. The carrot, we must acknowledge, is also important because it provides the necessary incentives for changing course, but as I already said, no one can get fooled in Congress. If Turkey decides to not reciprocate in a meaningful way, we will not see any fundamental shift, and Ankara will not manage to get out from Congress anything more than the bare minimum. So there's absolutely no indication that Turkey is getting closer to what it really wants, which is the Viper upgrade and the new F-16s.
Petro, great speaking with you as always. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Thano, for having me.
In other news, Greece is trying to prevent Turkey from patenting its Turkaegean trademark used in its tourism campaign in the United States and the European Union. Despite Turkey's disclaimers, Athens views the Turkaegean campaign as an attempt to misleadingly influence US and EU opinion regarding Turkey's claims in the Aegean. Greece regards as a positive development that the US Patent and Trade Office in February asked for more details in order to stop the patent process. In any case, a final ruling probably won't be issued until 2025. Finally, Chevron is seeking a drilling ship to explore for natural gas off Cyprus, Egypt, and Israel, as the U.S. energy company looks to meet growing demand in the region and Europe, two sources told Reuters. Chevron, which operates in the three eastern Mediterranean countries, issued a lease tender on Monday seeking a drilling vessel in 2024 for a year with an option to extend for several years, the sources said. Chevron also wants to expedite the development of the Aphrodite gas field to the southeast of Cyprus, which is estimated to contain about 4.5 trillion cubic meters of gas. That wraps up today's episode of The Greek Current. Thanks for tuning in.